There was a 12-year-old boy named Martin who lived in an old apartment building. The elevator in the building was also very old and very small. A sign on the wall read maximum capacity 3 people. Ever since his family moved into the apartment building, Martin had been nervous about using the elevator. Something about it scared him. Maybe it was the dim, flickering fluorescent light in the ceiling. Maybe it was the dirty brown walls. Maybe it was the door which opened slowly with an anonymous screech and slammed shut with a loud bang. Maybe it was the way it shuddered and creaked as it ascended, making a dull bang as it passed through each floor. Martin was always afraid that something would go wrong. He imagined the elevator cord suddenly snapping and causing him to plunge to his death, or the elevator getting stuck between floors, trapping him inside and causing him to starve to death before anyone noticed. Martin usually took the stairs. They were safer, but the only problem was that he lived on the 17th floor. By the time he got home from school in the evening, he was completely exhausted. "Why didn't you take the elevator?" his father would ask. Martin never answered. He was embarrassed to let his father know he was scared. Sometimes he would force himself to take the elevator. He just had to get used to it, he told himself. But it was no use. He didn't get used to it. He hated being alone on the elevator. He had an irrational dread of being trapped in it for hours by himself. But it wasn't much better when there was other passengers. The elevator was so small that it felt unbearably crowded and claustrophobic. One day he was taking the elevator. It stopped at the 14th floor. The doors opened with a metallic screech and a fat woman was standing there. She was enormous. As she waddled on, Martin was sure he felt the elevator groaning under her weight. She was so fat that he pinned him into the corner and he could not move. The folds of flabs pressed up against his face. He felt like he couldn't breathe. The fat woman stared at him with beady eyes. Martin tried to avoid eye contact, but she kept staring at him. It made him very uneasy. The elevator croaked and banged as it slowly made its way down. 12, 11, 10. Martin looked at his watch and wondered how much longer he could stand it. 9, 8, 7. Eventually they reached the lobby. The doors opened with a screech and Martin squeezed past the fat woman and got out. Finally he could breathe again. He was so relieved. He ran all the way to school. He thought about her all day. Did she live in the building? He had never seen her before. And the building wasn't very big, only 4 apartments for each floor. It seemed very likely that she did not live there and had only been visiting somebody. But if she was only visiting somebody, why would she leave the building at 7:30 in the morning? People didn't make visits at that time of day. Did that mean she did live in the building? It was likely that sometime he would be riding with her again on the elevator. He was apprehensive as he approached the building after school. Why would he be afraid of an old lady? If he was afraid of her, if he let it control him, then he was worse than all the names they called him at school. He then pressed the button and stepped into the empty elevator. He stared at the lights, urging the elevator on. It stopped at 3. At least it's not 14, he told himself. The person she was visiting lives on the 14th. He watched the door slide open, revealing a green coat, a piggish face, blue eyes fixed on him as though she knew he would already be there. It wasn't possible. It was like a nightmare. But there she was, massively real. "Going up," he said, his voice a humiliating squeak. She nodded, her flesh quivering, and stepped on. The door slammed. He watched her puggy hand move towards the buttons. She pressed not 14, but 18, the top floor, 1 floor above his own. The elevator trembled and began to ascend. The fat lady watched him. He knew she had gotten on at the 14th this morning, so why was she on 3 and going up to 18 now? The only floors he had ever went to were 17 and 1. What was she doing? Had she been waiting for him? Was she riding with him on purpose? But that was crazy. Maybe she had lots of friends in the building. Or else she was a cleaning lady who worked in different apartments. That had to be it. He felt her eyes on him as he stared at the numbers slowly blinking on and off, slower than usual it seemed to him. Maybe the elevator was having trouble because of how heavy she was. It was supposed to carry 3 adults, but it was old. What if it got stuck between floors? What if it fell? They were on 5 now. It occurred to him to press 7 and get off and walk the rest of the way, and he would have done it if he could only reach the buttons. But there was no room to get past her without squeezing against her, and he could not bear the thought of any physical contact with her. He concentrated on being in his room. He would be home soon, only another minute or so. He could stand anything for a minute, even this crazy old lady watching him. Unless the elevator got stuck between floors, then what would he do? He tried to push the thought away, but it kept coming back. He looked at her. She was still staring at him. No expression at all on her squished little features. When the elevator stopped on his floor, she barely moved out of the way. He had to inch past her, rubbing against her horrible scratch coat, terrified the door would close before he made it through. She quickly turned and watched him as the door slammed shut, and he then thought, now she knows I live on the 17th. "Did you ever notice a strange fat lady on the elevator?" he asked his father that evening. "Can't say I have," he said, not looking away from the television. He knew he was probably making a mistake, but he had to tell someone. "Well, she was on the elevator with me twice today, and the funny thing was, she just kept staring at me. She never stopped looking at me for a minute." "You think you know of anybody who had a weird cleaning lady or anything? What are you worked up about now?" his father said, turning impatiently away from the television. "I'm not worked up, it was just funny the way she was staring at me. You know how people never look at each other in the elevator? Well, she just kept staring at me." "What am I going to do with you, Martin?" his father said. He sighed and shook his head. "Honestly, now you're afraid of some poor old lady?" "I'm not afraid." "You're afraid," said his father, with total assurance. "When are you going to grow up and act like a man, or are you going to be scared your whole life?" He managed not to cry until he got to his room, but his father probably knew that he was crying anyway. He slept very little that night. In the morning when Martin went to the elevator doors opened, and waiting for him inside was the fat lady. She was expecting him. She knew he lived on the 17th. He stood there, unable to move, and then backed away. As he did so, her expression changed. She smiled as the doors slammed. He ran for the stairs. When he got to the stairs, he fell between the 16th and 15th floor. He only had to drag himself up 1.5 flights with a terrible pain in his leg. His father was silent on the way to the hospital, disappointed and annoyed with him for being such a coward and a fool. It was a simple fracture. He didn't need a wheelchair, only a cast and crutches. But he was condemned to the elevator now. Was that why the fat lady had smiled? Had she known it would happen this way? At least his father was with him on the elevator on the way back up from the hospital. There was no room for the fat lady to get on, and even if she did, his father would see her. He would then realize how peculiar she was, and then maybe he would understand. Once they got home, he had to stay in the apartment for a few days. The doctor said he should use his leg as little as possible. A week maybe, a whole week without getting on the elevator. Riding up with his father leaning on his crutches. Looked around the cubicle and felt kind of a triumph. He had beat the elevator and the fat lady for the time being, and the end of the week was very, very far away. "Oh, I almost forgot." His father reached out his hand and pressed 9. "What are you doing? You're not getting off, are you?" he asked him, trying not to sound panicky. "I promised my friend Terry I'll stop by and say hi," his father said, looking at his watch as he stepped off. "Let me go with you. I want to visit her too," Martin pleaded, struggling forward on his crutches. But the door was already closing. "Afraid to be on the elevator alone?" his father said, with a look of total scorn. "Grow up, Martin." The door slammed shut. Martin hobbled to the buttons and pressed 9, but it didn't do any good. The elevator stopped at 10, where the fat lady was waiting for him. She moved in quickly. He was too slow, too unsteady on his crutches to work his way past her in time. The door sealed them in and the elevator started up. "Hello, Martin," she said and laughed, and then she pushed the stop button and smiled at him. So that's going to be the end of the story. I really hope you guys did enjoy this, and if you did, drop a like and comment down below the creepiest part about it. Also, turn on post notifications if you guys don't have them on already. And if you guys want to go get my merch, it's in the description below. And let me know if you guys want to see more of these one-story videos. I really enjoy them, so let me know if you guys want to see more. And if you guys want to keep up with me on more social media platforms, my TikTok and Instagram will be linked in the description. So yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. I love you all and have a wonderful day.